In this section, we're going to cover the HUD-Homestore.gov website, submitting offers, and the process of getting signed up. So before we begin, I wanted to give you a little bit of information about the actual website. All properties nationwide are listed at HUD-Homestore.gov and on this website. If the property is not on the website, you cannot make an offer. So one thing that you might want to take note of as a buyer's agent, if you set up a showing, and especially if that showing is after that bid deadline date, you're going to want to make sure that you go back into this website before you go show the property to make sure that the property is still available. Remember, the listing agent does have to change the property to pending, but sometimes this does take time. And especially if you're showing early that morning, you want to make sure you go ahead and do that. This is going to be the most accurate site. In fact, it may show up on this site or be removed from the site even before the notifications have gone out that the offer has been accepted. So it's important, at least you want to follow up there. It's going to be more accurate than the MLS. It's going to be more accurate than Realtor, more accurate than Zillow. So if it's on the site, you can make an offer. If it's not on the site, you cannot make an offer. There are other reasons that it comes off of the site. So if you're not sure, you can go ahead and check back the next day or follow up on the site to see if the property happens to reappear. But like I said, at the time that it's not on the site, an offer cannot be made. We're going to also go over the dates that are on the site so that you'll understand when that bid deadline date is and how to find it. Your also important information to understand is that you will never have to pay for information on this site. Of course, the purpose of the site is to sell the homes. They want the homes to move as quickly as possible. They want the homes to move to owner occupants as possible, and they want to get the most amount of money as possible. So there would be no benefit for them to say make you pay for an address or them to make you pay for information. So if you're on a site and it's asking for payment, or if your client is on a site and it's asking for payment, that is not the official site of HUD. And be careful. More than likely, it's very, very possible that that could be a scam. Because I do not know of any foreclosure company that charges you to get an address of any that I deal with. So you want to be very, very careful when you're approaching that. And one of the things you can do as a buyer's agent to best represent your client is for your client to be able to let your client know this when they're searching for properties. Now, again, this is the official site of the U.S. Department of Urban and Housing Development. This site does not belong to the asset management companies. It does not belong to the field service management companies. It does not change as the asset management companies change. And all properties are going to be submitted, all offers are submitted directly to HUD. They are reviewed by the asset management companies, but they are all submitted directly to this site. And this is every HUD property nationwide. So there is no other site in which offers are going to be submitted. So again, this is HUDHomestore.gov, and it's how you're going to submit an offer. So first we're going to take a little side note from being the selling agent, being the buyer's agent, and we're going to discuss a new step that is required for a buyer's agent to submit an offer. So the first thing you're going to want to do before you begin, and I highly, highly recommend that you do this. I actually recommend that you do this now. When you finish this video, go ahead and do this, and then you'll be prepared and ready to go. But if you're going to show a house and you have a property coming up, you're going to want to contact your broker and get their broker's NAIDS number and get set up as a bidder before you go show the property. A lot of times these properties, the bid deadline date is always 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. You're probably not going to be able to get in touch with your broker at 10 p.m. And getting all of this information sorted out at that time could definitely cost you an opportunity to place an offer. So be proactive on here. So we're going to take a side note just for a minute and go over some things that you have to do. So one of the first things that you have to do is you're going to have to register on the HUDHomestore.gov website. But before you can do that, your broker is going to have to take some steps. So when you do go to register, you're going to register as a bidder. And when you go to register as a bidder, it's going to ask you to set up your Yardi One. And if this is the first time that you're logging into Yardi One, you're going to click Set Up Yardi One and enter your email address on the Yardi One screen to receive an email with instructions on how to set up a new password. And if you don't receive that email, of course, you can click here for instructions. But for you to be able to do this, your broker is going to have taken a step prior to that. So if your broker has already taken the step, you'll be able to move forward and set up your Yardi One. But just a side note, if your broker has not already done this, or if it does not work for you, then the problem could be that your broker needs to follow these instructions. So as a broker, they're going to need to log into their NAID portal. And your broker can log in as a previously registered on a NAID portal. Like I said, this is just for the brokers, but I'm taking just a side note because this is a new step. It's not something that brokers used to have to do. And now that they do have to do it, I just want to make sure that it's on here so you can go over it. Maybe you can take notes, or if your broker doesn't know, they'll know now how to do it. So once they log into their portal, they'll be able to go to Manage Users and Agents. And once they go to Manage Users and Agents, they're going to be able to create a user. So modify existing users. So you're going to create or add a user. And once the broker adds a user, it's going to just ask for the user's email address, first, last name, phone number, and the group. The group is going to be the NAIDS number. Some brokers may have more than one NAIDS number. I have more than one NAIDS number, so I can choose which NAIDS number my agents fall under, but they're going to create that. Once they create that information, then you're going to get an email as an agent, and then you're going to be able to move forward. It's a very, very easy process for the broker to do. But once you do that as the bidder and you go back in now, you as the agent, as the buyer's agent, and you register as a bidder as the first time you're a bidder on the HUD-Owned.gov website, your NAID type is going to be your selling or listing broker. Remember, only brokers can have NAIDs. Agents do not have NAIDs. So you're going to register under your broker. So the NAID type is your selling listing broker. But your role as the buyer's agent is going to be registered under the selling agent. So you're going to register again under selling listing broker as your type, and your role is going to be the selling agent. The next question that it's going to ask you for is your principal broker's NAIDS number. So you are going to have to acquire that NAIDS number from your broker. You can also search for it in the site and have that number. And you're going to key in your principal broker's NAIDS number. From there, the next question that it asks is your real estate license number. So do not key in your broker's license number. Key in your license number and your license information. And then you'll be able to go in and set up the rest of the questions, your usernames, your passwords, your security questions, to be able to set up to become a bidder on the website. So once you do that, it's a very simple process. Once you follow those steps, then you're registered. Just remember your username and password so that you can log back in. So what you're going to do to be able to submit an offer, when you're looking for a property, you're going to go to the HUD-Homestore.gov website. So a few tricks that I want to make sure you understand when you're trying to find a property on that website is, remember, less is more. So key in the minimal amount of information. So you might not want to start by keying in the entire address for the property. You might just want to start with the county and the state, or the city and the state. Because if you key in part of the address incorrectly, or you don't key it in exactly how HUD has it keyed in, you're going to get 0 results. And then you think the property might not still be available, but when it is still available. I also suggest that if you're pretty sure that a property is on there, try multiple ways, like key in the county, key in the city, key in different things to make sure that you're keying it in correctly, to make sure that property is not on there. You're not going to get a ton of results for your county. There's not a ton of HUD properties now. There used to be pages of them. Now there's usually going to be less than a page. So if you key that information in, you just want to try more than once to make sure that you're not miskeying or mistyping and getting 0 results when the property is actually out there, because you would hate for your client not to have the opportunity to submit an offer. because you missed it. But if you've done all of that, you've done all the ways that you can, and yet the property still shows up as not being on the property, you cannot find it, it's not on the website, then that means that property is not available at that time for you to submit an offer. You can reach out to the listing agent. They may be able to tell you if an offer's already been accepted and that's why it came off the website or something such as that, but it's got to be on the site. Okay. So we go to the website and we're going to do find a home. We're going to key in the minimal information so we can find the property that we want to submit the offer on. Once we do that, the property is going to show up. So in this instance, we keyed in Coleman, Alabama. When we keyed in Coleman, Alabama, one property showed up. And that one property, to open the information on that property, we are going to click on the blue part, that address to the property. And once we click on that, then the whole property is going to show up. So what we want to do is we want to submit an offer on this property. Now, I will tell you, we'll go over this later, but you're going to want to make sure you've looked at this property well. Make sure you know all the details about the property before you submit an offer. Remember, you're the buyer's agent. It's your job to represent the buyer. It's your job to know the information on the property. There's a lot of details given in this website, so make sure you're looking at them. So you're going to go to log in to submit a bid. And so once you log in here to submit the bid, and this is for bidder users only here, you're going to log in to submit your bid. And it's going to bring you to a login page. You're going to sign in as a bidder user. Remember, you're not a public entity. You're not a government entity. So you're going to sign in as a bidder user so that you can submit an offer on the house. It's going to ask you for your username and password that you created to submit offers on properties. Once you do that, it's going to bring you back, and then it's going to give you the opportunity to submit a bid. So that has changed. It no longer says log in. Now it says submit a bid. Remember that in this instance, the word bid and offer can be used interchangeably. They're about the same thing. It's just submitting an offer on the property. So once you hit submit offer on the property, it's going to take you to the screen. You're going to be very shocked and in awe at how quickly you can actually key in an offer to a property. But remember, you've already done your due diligence. You've already done everything to make sure that your client is aware of what you are keying in. So the very first amount of information that it's going to ask you is the purchase price. How much? What's the sales price? How much of an offer does your client want to make on this property? So you're going to key this into line 3 of the offer. The next thing it's going to ask you is, how is your client going to purchase the property? Are they using an FHA loan? Or are they not using an FHA loan? What type of FHA loan are they using? So your standard FHA loan is a 203B. That's the type of loan you would do on most resale properties. That's what you're most used to. So, but remember, the property itself is going to have to qualify for a standard 203B loan or your standard FHA loan for you to do this type of financing. So if that very first line, applying for HUD FHA insured financing of 203B, if that line is light gray and it won't let you check that box, that means the house itself does not qualify for that type of financing. So don't mark another box and then plan to come back to it or change financing type. It is there because somebody went out there and inspected the property, and that property needs repairs. That property has something about it that keeps it from qualifying for that type of loan. So that is why that would be light gray. So you're going to check what type of financing your client is interested in doing on line 4. Now, do remember the 203B with repair escrow, the second one down, is a very, very easy loan. If you don't know about that type of loan, you want to reach out to your lender and learn about those. They're repair loans. They're where the client can escrow the amount in for any needed repairs, as long as the house qualifies and appraises. So if you don't know about that type of loan, it's a good loan to learn because it opens up a lot of opportunities for your buyers. But it's not an FHA class. So just remember that you're going to choose the type of financing your client qualifies for. If you don't know of these 3, the easiest thing to do is call your lender and ask. But you're going to want to make sure you click the right box at this time. The seller will pay for reasonable and customary cost, but not more than actual cost, or no more than paid by a typical seller in the area of obtaining financing and or closing, excluding broker's commission in the amount not to exceed. So line 5 is your opportunity to key in up to 3% of the sales price and buyer's closing cost. So we talked about it earlier that if the buyer wants closing costs, you have to negotiate it at the time of the offer. This is when you do that. You negotiate this at the time of the offer, the 3% in the buyer's sales price and the buyer's closing costs will go in line 5. It will not allow you to key in any more than 3%. It will allow you to key in less than. 6A is going to be your commission, the buyer's agent's commission. You can key in up to 3%. If there's a selling bonus, I've not seen a selling bonus in a very long time, but if there's a selling bonus, it would have been listed on the page, so you could key that in. You would key that in here as well. If you leave that off, you don't get it. But like I said, I've not seen one in a while, but if there is one, you can key it in. But you can key in up to 3% of the sales price as a buyer's agent's commission, and that would go in line 6. Line 6B is going to be the listing agent commission, and that should auto-calculate, and you can't change that. Line 7 is going to also auto-calculate, and line 7 is the net amount due to the seller. So just remember, when your client submits an offer and HUD reviews an offer, line 7 is the number that HUD looks at to determine whether or not they are going to accept or reject or counter that offer. It's also going to be determined if another offer is higher, is going to be based on line 7, not on line 3, purchase price, because they want to know what is the highest net amount to HUD. So line 5 and line 6 do affect line 7. So just remember, and that's why I said you could key in up to 3% for closing cost, or up to 3% for your commission, because anything less than that could help your client win the bid or not win the bid, because they are going to judge it on that net amount to HUD. I've had people call me. I've had people very angry because they said that HUD took a lesser offer than theirs. And when we investigated and looked, the HUD did not take a lesser offer. Their offer had closing cost and the other offer didn't. So that closing cost, even though HUD does, yes, they will agree to pay it, it still affects the net amount to HUD. And therefore, they still accept offers based upon that net amount. The next question it's going to ask you is, what type of purchaser are you working with? Are you working with an owner-occupant or an investor? Remember, if that investor is light gray, that means that you cannot submit an offer for them. It's not open to them yet. Usually most HUD homes is up to 30 days before an investor can put in an offer. They give priority bidding to owner occupants. So if that's light gray, you've got to wait till that time period ends. But you're going to tell whether or not your client is an owner occupant or an investor. In case you are curious, and we will go over this again because it's kind of important and people get confused. An owner occupant is someone who intends to occupy the property, period. It's not if a granddad is going to buy the property for their grandson and the granddad's going to put the property in his name, but the granddad's not going to live there, then the granddad is an investor. Unless the person who is purchasing the property intends to occupy the property, then they are not a owner occupant. Now, can the granddad buy the property and put it in the grandson's name? Yes, there are ways around it, and you can have a non-occupant co-borrower, but the owner occupant, someone must intend to live in that property. Number 10, it's going to ask you if the seller can hold your offer as a backup. I highly, highly recommend that you say yes. If you say yes, and your client was the next in line and the first deal falls through, sometimes, I cannot guarantee always, but sometimes HUD immediately takes the backup offer. They do not put the house back on the market. So if there's a backup offer keyed in at this time, you cannot key in a backup offer once an offer is already accepted, but your offer can be a backup if you key it in while they're still accepting offers. So if you mark that your client is the backup offer and the first offer falls through, there is a chance that your client could automatically get their offer accepted. Now, don't panic, because it doesn't mean, so let's say the house has been under contract and you submitted the offer 30 days ago and it just now falls through. You typically will get an email from HUD that says, is your client still interested? And you have a very short, but a certain amount of time to respond and say, yes, they're still interested, or no, they're not still interested. Because if your client had moved on and purchased another property, they might not still want this property. But if you hit yes and they do, it gives them the opportunity to be the next in line. So it may make it where your client can get a house that they really wanted that otherwise they thought they might not be able to get. So that number 10 just says that they will hold that offer for a backup offer, and that they're going to notify you should that offer become the backup offer. Also, a lot of times if you click this button and your offer is rejected and HUD decides, sometimes they will counter way out in the future. If a house doesn't sell, they'll notify you that they'll take less. And the only way you get that notification is if you click this, but it's not mandatory that your client move forward with the purchase. So the next thing it's going to ask you, it's going to let you know that if your bid is awarded, if you win the offer, if you've got the highest offer and HUD accepts your offer, then you're going to have to submit the required documents to HUD within 2 business days of being awarded that offer. So you're going to want to make sure you already have your paperwork in order. You already have your pre-approval letter. They're going to ask for earnest money. They're going to give you very strict rules to follow, and you're going to have to upload this information. That's why I said it's very important that you register and not register under your broker, because what your broker might not know to be looking for that bid acceptance. And if it takes a day for your broker to realize that email's there, you've already missed 24 of your 48 hours to get that information into HUD. So you want to make sure that you are aware and that you're ready to go if your offer is accepted. And then it's going to ask you your basic questions. Is any of the purchasers an employee or immediate family member of the management official and or affiliated entity of HUD Asset Management Company, HUD Field Service Management Company, appraiser for HUD, a AM listing broker for HUD, buyer selected closing agent for HUD, HUD employees, except for employees who have no involvement in management and oversight of HUD-owned properties. So if your client is affiliated with any of these, they may not be able to purchase the homes, because HUD puts very strict guidelines. Like me as a listing broker, I cannot purchase a HUD property. And so they're going to ask you yes or no. Is your client affiliated in any way with HUD, with the asset management companies, the field service companies, or anything such as that? And you're just going to answer honestly yes or no. Is the selling broker agent submitting the bid as a purchaser or as an ownership interest in the entity purchasing the property? So yes, you as an agent, not the listing broker, not someone who works for the listing broker, but you as an agent, you are allowed to purchase HUD properties. And so you would just say yes or no. Or is the person purchasing a listing agent? At least one purchaser must be living in the property. Those not living in the property will not be required to sign an owner-occupant addendum. So if you're saying you're going to have an ownership in the property, that you are an owner-occupant, you're going to have to sign an agreement saying you are an owner-occupant. Then the next question that's going to ask you, and I notify you this up front now because this is something we don't typically ask for as agents on a regular sales contract, but it's going to ask you your purchaser's type. Are they an individual? Are they going to purchase using a social security number? If they're a business, they have to have an EIN number, or an ITN or a U.S. government ID. They're going to ask you what form of identification your client has and wants to use. So you're going to say all of those, and you're going to say yes. If they're not living in the property, you're going to check the box. If they are living in the property, you're not going to check the box. So the next thing it's going to ask you for is that identification number. They're going to either want your client's social security number, your business EIN, or your ITIN number. You're going to have that number to be able to submit an offer. There is no way around it. You cannot submit an offer on a HUD property without one of these three numbers. So you're going to make sure that you let your client know that ahead of time so that you have that information. So if you have been an agent who has waited till the last minute at 9 or 10 o'clock, you're not having to scramble to get this information from your client. And then if they are a company, the next thing it's going to ask you is what's the company name? When you're keying in names for HUD, whether it's a company name or a purchaser's name, be careful. Same way with social security numbers. A lot of times the only way to correct these is to cancel the bid. If you cancel the bid and there's a backup offer, it might immediately go to that backup offer. So your client could lose the property if you key in the social security number, the EIN or ITIN number incorrectly. So you want to make sure you're keying in these numbers correctly, that you're taking the time to do it. Same way with their name, their address, all of this information needs to be very accurate. I highly recommend where it asks you to key in their email address and then ask you to confirm the email address, that you key it in twice and don't copy paste. The reason for the confirmation is to keep you from making a mistake. If you made the mistake the first time you keyed it in and then you copy it and move it to the second one, because heaven forbid you take 30 extra seconds, then you've keyed it in incorrectly twice. If you key in your client's email address incorrectly, your client cannot sign the contract, because contracts come electronically through the email address. So make sure you're keying in that correctly. Make sure you're keying in the contact and the phone number and everything correctly for your clients. But you are also going to need, another thing that we don't typically ask for on our general residential sales contracts is your client's current mailing address, but that will be a question that you have to fill in when keying in this offer. At this time, if you have a co-borrower, you would add another purchaser and just key in the same information, their social security number, their name, their address, their email address, and their phone number. So if you have two people purchasing the property, you would just add this here at the bottom where it says add another purchaser. The next thing it's going to ask you for is your buyer select closing agent information. Who is your closing attorney? Who do you want to close with? I highly, highly recommend that you make sure whoever you close with understands and knows how to close a HUD property. They should already have a NAID number. They should already understand the portal in which they will have to log in and use. So if you have a closing attorney that you use, you may just want to call them up and say, hey, are you familiar with using HUD, doing HUD properties? So you want to make sure. If you're not, you might want to call the listing agent and say, hey, do you know anybody who closes a lot of HUD properties? Because they're going to see a lot of them going through. It's in a recommendation. It's not a referral. It's just, does the property already have, does the person, because if you use a closing agent who doesn't, say, check their email, then they're not going to sign the contract on time, which can cancel your contract. So it's very important. And whoever that closing agent is, you're going to want to let them know, like, hey, I keyed you in. Watch your email. Watch for this to come across through HUD. So you're going to key in your closing company, your closing attorney's information here. And then it's going to, and then a second part of your closing attorney is their name, the officer's name and their email address and their phone number. And you're going to key in all of that. The backup officer is so if you close with a closing attorney and there's two people there that could check, you can put up the second person's name at your closing attorney's office. You can key in up to two people's name for HUD to reach out to should an offer be accepted. So then you're going to hit save and continue once you have all of this information keyed in. When you hit save and continue, it's going to ask you for your information. The e-signature signer information has been populated from the principal broker's information supplied within HUD-Home Store. If there is another designated signer for the sales packages, please update this information. If you leave your broker's information in there, then your broker can sign. If you key your information in there, then it's going to come to you, and you're going to need a broker's authorization letter. So you may want to put your broker's information number in there so they can be the e-signer. If not, it's going to be an extra step for you. So I recommend that you let your broker be the signer. That doesn't mean your broker is going to get the information. That just means the broker is willing to sign the sales contract. But you need to coordinate with your broker which way is better. If you put your name in there as the signer, your broker is going to have to give you a letter of authorization saying you have permission to sign on your client's behalf. So what will you be notified if your offer is accepted? When the asset management company accepts a bid, the selling agent who submitted the winning bid will be notified by the asset management company. So if your offer is accepted, you're going to get an email that lets you know, congratulations, your offer is accepted. Here's your next steps. It says that the asset management company will endeavor to notify the agent by email or by phone. I've never heard of them calling. They're going to email you. So you're going to want to make sure if you've submitted an offer, you need to be prepared to watch your email after the bid deadline date to know if your offer was accepted. Because remember, you only have a certain amount of time to get all the paperwork to them. Currently, all other bidders are not notified. They only notify the people whose offer was accepted or countered. They do not notify every other person whose offer was rejected. Now, mind you, the listing agent doesn't know who keyed in offers. They don't have access to this information. So they can't tell you either. So if you don't get anything, more than likely your offer was rejected. But we'll go in and let you see how you can tell if your offer has been accepted, countered, or rejected. So the way you're going to do that is you can log into your HUD-Home Store profile and check the status of your bid. So remember, they only email accepted offers. But if you think your offer should have been accepted, it's a good idea to log in and see what's going on so you'll know whether or not your offer was accepted, rejected, or countered. Maybe it was accepted and they sent the email, your email address was incorrect, or maybe something else happened. So we'll go through how to see if your offer is accepted. So you're going to log in again. Once you get logged in, you're already to the website. It will give you the option to hit bid results. So when you go to bid results, it will give you the option to key in your client's information, their name, your bid confirmation number, something to show you whether or not that bid was offer was accepted or rejected. And so once you get that information, it's just going to give you these little letters. One of them will be bid accepted. If it says bid accepted, that means you won the bid, the offer, and you will receive an email with instructions. So start watching your email, because at some point in time during that day, you're going to get an email telling you what to do. And you're going to want to make sure you follow those instructions very, very accurately. You're probably going to get more than one email. You're probably going to get one from the asset management company that tells you what to do, and another one from the listing broker also telling you what to do and offering assistance. If it says OBS, that means another bid was selected and someone else won the offer. So you are no longer available to make offers on that property because they did accept an offer. They just didn't accept yours. So OBS means another bid was selected. Somebody else. They took another offer. They didn't take your offer. They took someone else's offer. CA means canceled. That means your bid was rejected. I don't know why they use the word canceled. To me, that's kind of scary. It kind of makes me feel like I did something wrong. You didn't do anything wrong. They just rejected your offer. Most of the time, if your offer was rejected, that means you have the opportunity to key in another offer. If they didn't accept an offer, the property is going to probably still be on the market, and they'll do a new bid deadline date. And at that point in time, you can key in a new offer and maybe win the bid. If you're working with an investor, so if you've had a property that's been on the market for more than 30 days and you have an investor and they don't want to go too high, but they really want the property, I suggest that you key in the offer maybe weekly, maybe every other week, as long as the property is on the market, because eventually if HUD doesn't get an accepted offer, they're going to take a lower offer. But it doesn't mean if you didn't key one in, you might not get it. You might not know. So I would continue to key those offers in if you're working with an investor who really wants a property, or even if you're working with an owner occupant. If you want to go in weekly or something for a property that's been on the market a while that you think might not sell for the price that it's listed at, eventually, if they don't get a high enough offer, they may take a lower offer. But for them to be able to take that lower offer, you have to have it keyed in. CO means your offer was countered. If your offer was countered, you will receive an email. So one of the important things I want to go over with you with a counter offer is if you receive a counter offer from HUD, that counter offer is going to tell you line 7 of the contract. It's going to say net to HUD. Your offer of blah, blah, blah was not accepted, but HUD will accept an offer for, and it will give you whatever that amount is, and it will say net to HUD. Be very careful if your counter offer says net to HUD. That is not a counter offer of the sales price. So you're going to have to go back in and calculate what the sales price is after commissions and closing costs are paid. So you either need to add 6 or 9% to it. So 6, if your client didn't ask for closing costs, you need to add the 6% commission back in because you want the buyer's agent's commission and the listing agent's commission. If your client asks for closing costs, you're going to have to add 9% back in. There's a math formula on how to do that, but that's a whole different lesson. But you want to make sure that you don't call your client and say, no, they won't take your offer, but they'll accept blah, and they're going to accept, and you didn't calculate commission or closing costs, because then you're going to have to go back to your client and say, hey, I was off by 9%. And that could be a significant amount to your client and make a huge difference. So just make sure you're very careful when you're looking at those counter offers. So what we're going to do next is we're going to talk about the different guidelines and procedures for HUD. So join us for that next section, and thank you so much.